The most interesting thing I learned from this class is about the role of the fool in Shakespeare's King Lear. Many readers might think he is there simply to offer comic relief to the dramatic play. However, there is much more behind the fool's clever anecdotes. The fool is actually the driving force that leads Lear in his journey to come to know himself. The fool helps Lear to realize his mistake in banishing Cordelia and tries to get him to correct it. The fool is loyal to Lear from his very first arrival in the play all the way up to his early death. The fool is also a very unique character. Out of all the characters in King Lear, the fool is the only one that Lear allows criticism from. For example, when Kent and Cordelia speak their mind to Lear, they get banished. The fool can make comments to Lear with no punishment at all. This allows Lear to reflect on his actions. The fool's main method for transforming Lear is his use of clever anecdotes and metaphors. He gives his first metaphor when he says, "When thou clovest thy crown in the middle, and gavest away both parts, thou borest thine ass back on the dirt." The fool is giving the metaphor of an egg, representing Lear's kingdom. He claims that when he broke up the egg, he ate the middle and gave away the two shells, so that he had nothing left. This supports what happened after the love test. Lear's intention was to give the middle and largest area to Cordelia, and he planned to grow old there while Goneril and Regan took the lesser portions. However, after banishing Cordelia, Lear is left with nothing. The first time Lear shows any signs of progress in his transformation is when he brings up Cordelia for the first time since he banished her. He says, "O most small fault, how ugly did thou show in Cordelia, which, like an engine, wrenched my frame of nature from the fixed place, drew from my heart all love. O Lear, 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 beat at this gate that left thy folly in, and thy dear judgment out." While Lear is acknowledging for the first time his regret for what happened to Cordelia, he sees her banishment as her own fault. The second attempt by the fool to change Lear takes the form of another metaphor. The fool asks Lear, "Thou canst tell why one's nose stands in the middle of one's face?" Lear says no. The fool answers, "Why, to keep one's nose out of either side's no, to keep one's eyes out of either side's nose, that what a man cannot smell out he may spy into." The fool uses this metaphor of the eyes in the same way he uses the metaphor of the egg. The fool argues that the nose divides the eyes. The eyes represent Regan and Goneril, and the nose represents what would have been Lear and Cordelia had Lear not banished her. However, Lear does banish Cordelia, leaving nothing to divide Goneril and Regan, thus rendering Lear powerless. This leads Lear to consider his fault in the matter when he says, "I did Cordelia wrong." The fool tries to push Lear's regret further with another metaphor saying, "I can tell why a snail has a house, why to put one's head in and not to give away to his daughters and leave its horns without a case." This quote marks a turning point for Lear. The fool's metaphors are really starting to get to him and bother his conscience. Unable to accept his fault in Cordelia's banishment, Lear is slowly driven to madness. Lear is constantly in a battle trying to suppress his feelings of regret. He says, "O me, my heart, my rising heart, but down." He addresses the feelings of regret in his heart, but then says down, showing him suppressing these feelings. The fool then tries again to fuel Lear's regret with another metaphor. He says, "Cry to it, Knuckle, as the Cockney did to the eels when she put him in the paste alive." In this metaphor, a Cockney is a squeamish woman, and in the story, she was too scared to kill the eels before putting them in a pie. This ultimately ruined the pie because the eels would rise up out of it. The fool is applying this to Lear's suppression of his feelings. If he were to just listen to his feelings and fix his mistakes, he would be free from the constant rising regret in his heart. Instead, Lear is like the Cockney, allowing his feelings to continue to rise and drive him mad. Unfortunately, this metaphor fails as well because Lear does not listen to the fool yet again. He shows that he still denies his fault when he says, "I'm a man more sinned against than sinning." Lear still does not accept that all his recent misfortunes is his fault. The metaphor of the eels is the fool's final attempt to lead Lear to redemption before his early death. This last attempt ultimately fails. When Lear is finally reunited with Cordelia, he is still focused on himself and his own desires. Even after all he has been through and all of the fool's lessons, Lear still holds on to this dream of growing old in the kingdom with Cordelia by his side to nurse him. When Cordelia and Lear are being sent off to prison, Lear says, "No, no, no, no. Come, let's away to prison. We two alone will sing like birds in the cage." Lear sees this prison as the kingdom that he dreamed of in the beginning of the play. He sees it as an opportunity to get back what he lost with the banishment of Cordelia. He shows that he has not been changed from the fool's lessons. While Lear ultimately has no redemption, I see the fool's actions as a success rather than a failure. The whole time the fool was alive, he slowly began to change Lear and his conscience. He falls short only because he doesn't live long enough to see Lear's transformation through to the end. Without the fool's guidance, Lear falls right back into his selfish ways from the beginning of the play. The fool's deeper role in King Lear shows that there is often more to a character than it may first seem. As it turns out, even a lowly fool in the story can end up being the mentor character.